Welcome back to the Nerf Report. We have a great show lined up for you this week. Epic Games apparently offered to pay Sony $200 million to bring PlayStation exclusives to the Epic Games Store. Bungie accidentally activates Crossplay for Destiny 2. And Google confirms the news that, well, some of us have known for a while. Stadia is alive and well. All of this and much, much more on this week's episode of the Nerf Report.
Are you listening?
Welcome back to the Nerf Report. My name is Bryant. I am so glad that you're joining us for this week because this is a very special week. The Nerf Report has officially turned 4 years old. We have done 197 episodes and are quickly approaching the 200th episode. And to celebrate, we went back and reacted to the very first episode of the Nerf Report, which is full of cringe and non-stop embarrassing moments for me. So please, once you're done watching this video, head on over and check out that video as well. And quite frankly, it has been a crazy week for gamers. One of the biggest stories to come out of this week was from the Epic vs. Apple Battle of the Billionaires lawsuit, in which, according to GamesIndustry.biz, Epic reportedly offered Sony $200 million to secure PlayStation exclusives on the Epic Games Store. Now, we don't know if Sony accepted this deal, but essentially the offer was a minimum guarantee of $200 million for 4 to 6 PlayStation titles. And it's probably worth noting that two PlayStation exclusives, Ready, Set, Heroes, and Predator Hunting Grounds, have already released on the Epic Games Store. And I would like to think that Sony looked at this deal and thought, wait, so this is saying any exclusives and you'll give us $200 million? Well, sure. I mean, you could bring like God of War, or you could bring over Uncharted. Yeah, we could totally do that. But like, I just want to be clear. You're saying any exclusive and we still get paid, right? Yeah. Oh, we can definitely make this work. But interestingly enough, Sony wasn't the only company that Epic was interested in. Epic was also eyeing exclusives from both Xbox and Nintendo. However, they did note that this is extremely unlikely, as the Epic Games Store is a direct competitor with Microsoft, and due to Nintendo's corporate history, exclusives on the Epic Games Store are kind of a non-starter. Destiny 2 was also in the news this week, as developer Bungie released the latest DLC expansion titled the Season of the Splicer, which brought Guardians a brand new raid, new missions, new weapons, and the accidental release of Crossplay. That's right, Bungie accidentally activated Crossplay for the entire PC, PlayStation, Google Stadia, and Xbox player base. With Bungie's community manager Cosmo tweeting, "We are seeing reports that some players are able to get a sneak peek at Crossplay. This isn't meant to be live yet and is not representative of the full experience. We will be implementing a fix to remove public access later this week, but in the meantime, feel free to partake." Now, the good news here is that Crossplay will be returning in the fall of 2021, so luckily, Guardians won't have to wait much longer for this one. And I gotta be honest, this is gonna be extremely interesting to watch, because now that the genie is out of the bottle, how do you get Crossplay away from the player base without upsetting the players, who, historically speaking, have always been extremely reasonable and never outspoken? Which brings us to this week's main story: Google Stadia, who had a pretty impressive week this week. First off, Ubisoft showed their recommitment to Stadia as a platform by telling investors that they would be adding Rainbow Six Siege, For Honor, and Uno 50th Anniversary Edition to the platform this year. Those games are on top of the already confirmed Ubisoft games coming to Stadia this year, like Far Cry 6, Riders Republic, and The Division Heartland. Stadia as a platform also received 2 new games with Street Power Football and 100 Days Winemaking Simulator. Google confirmed that they are still committed to bringing Stadia to the brand new Chromecast with 9 to 5. Dirt 5 announced that Stadia players would be receiving cross-platform matchmaking later this year. And on top of all of that, Stadia announced 2 new games coming to the service, with Super Animal Royale and Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. And like I said, I mean, a pretty solid, busy week. But unfortunately, probably didn't hear much about that because Stadia was in the headlines for a completely different reason. GameIndustry.biz posted an interview with Stadia developer marketing lead Nate Ahern, in which Nate told the publication that Stadia is alive and, well, hold up. I thought you said that this story was something that was getting blown out of proportion. I mean, how could you possibly misconstrue a company coming out saying that they are alive and well? Jesus Christ. Kotaku wrote this week, Google says everything at Stadia is fine as the water reaches their noses, in which the author of this piece went on to compare Stadia's current state to the sinking Titanic and stated that Stadia's alive and well comment is the company mostly rearranging chairs on a sinking Titanic, while pointing towards anything to distract folks from the rapidly rising water levels and the fact that this ship doesn't have many people on it. And honestly, I mean, that's an interesting historical reference to make, because the Titanic was the 4th deadliest maritime disaster in the world, where over 1,500 people died because of that accident. Where on the other hand, Stadia is a video game platform. Granted, I am probably oversimplifying this issue here, so let's hear why Kotaku thinks Stadia is doomed. Kotaku wrote, the last 12 months or so have been rough times for Google Stadia. Lawsuits, its main first-party development studio shutting down with little warning, issues with indie devs, and key folks leaving the company. But according to Google, a company famous for shutting down services, everything is fine. You know what, guys, I gotta admit, that's some pretty damning stuff right there. If only a Stadia exec would come out and, I don't know, give an update and say that everything's okay and that the company is alive and well. Kotaku continued by writing, when asked what Google Stadia was doing to prove it's actually alive and well, Ahern pointed to all the games being added to the service. When pushed by GameIndustry.biz to give a real answer, Ahern offered more jargon and gibberish, instead saying Google is focused on delivering value for our partners and on behalf of our players. Wow, jargon and gibberish? You know what, let's just do something real quick. Let's go back to the original GameIndustry.biz article and kind of see what Kotaku considers jargon and gibberish. GameIndustry.biz wrote, Ahern said, I'd tell a non-believer to take notice of how we're continuing to put our works into action as we grow the Stadia Makers program and partner with AAA studios like Capcom, EA, Square Enix, Ubisoft, and others. Ahern pointed to the release of newer titles on the platform, such as last week's Resident Evil Village, the introduction of AAA hits like Resident Evil 7 and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to the Stadia Pro subscription, and the ongoing addition of new features. Huh. Look, I mean, I'm gonna level with you guys. I have done my fair share of jargon and gibberish, but none of that was gibberish. Those were valid points. The question was, what is Stadia doing to prove that it's actually alive? I mean, they're a video game platform who's bringing games to the platform. Now, Kotaku continued by saying, according to Google, adding a search bar is how they are delivering value to their players. That search bar, from my own experience, isn't very good. Kotaku, what the fuck are you talking about? You type in the game you want and it appears. I mean, I'm no programmer, but that's the basic fundamentals of a search bar. How is that not good? Sure, I will raise the complaint as much as the next guy that when I type the word ass into a search engine, I usually just want to see pictures of great asses. But when I type it into the Stadia search engine, I can't really fault them for giving me Assassin's Creed instead of butt pics. And look, this is just one of many cases where despite what Stadia says, gaming media is bent on continuing this narrative where Stadia is this terrible platform and is doomed. For example, this week, IGN wrote an article that they had to amend later on because they claimed that Stadia was missing features that the platform promised at launch, when those features have been active for almost 8 months now. PC Gamer chopped up this entire story of Stadia being alive and well with a single tweet which they said, nothing to see here, which raises the question, why does gaming media so desperately want Stadia to fail? And I don't have an answer for that. The platform works, the technology is good, and Stadia is constantly trying to improve. They are bringing more and more games to the platform. They are adding new quality of life features. They are investing into the indie community with the Stadia Makers program, and they are constantly listening to their community. Yet none of these publications will talk about that. In fact, any mention of the Stadia community is often met with jokes that, well, there's only 2 people over there. Or the other one of, well, I'm sure the 5 people on Stadia will like that one. Which, as a member of the Stadia community, let me just tell you, those jokes are getting really stale, guys. I mean, gaming media was quick to criticize Stadia's management and direction of the company at launch. And gotta be honest, some of the points were valid. But when Google has realized their mistakes and are trying to address it and are restructuring as a company, Gaming media meets them with more criticism and they're like, well, this company is doomed. Why is it that every time Stadia is mentioned in gaming media, they treat it as a punchline? There is never a mention of any good Stadia news. For example, there has been zero mention of how the Stadia community got behind an indie developer who was crowdfunding their game. The Stadia community knocked that developer's fundraising goal out of the park, and because the demand from the Stadia community was so intense, the developer immediately got a meeting with Stadia and has been invited into the Stadia Makers program. And this is the part that I keep mentally coming back to. All of this comes down to platform representation in gaming media. I always hear this argument from gaming influencers and journalists that are like, I don't know anybody who games on Google Stadia. And it's like, how is that not an example that you are in a bubble? Sure, there aren't as many Stadia players as PlayStation players or Xbox players, but search Stadia on Twitter and you will find a thriving community of players. Granted, they're at each other's throats like 20% of the time, but there is a community there nonetheless, and they deserve to be heard. And I guess what I mean by platform representation is if your entire publication is gaming solely on PlayStation, then obviously you are going to have a bias against Xbox, Nintendo, or Stadia. If you're not immersing yourself into the communities, the games, or even the platform, how can you correctly report these stories fairly? And for the most part, none of these major platforms have spotlighted anyone that actually plays Stadia on a daily basis, outside of being forced to try out a new game or somebody that tested the service at launch. I want to be extremely clear. I don't think that this is vindictive or the publications are being purposefully evil here. Stadia, like many other cloud gaming platforms, is new, and with that comes its own set of unique challenges. I just think that you have uninformed people who are being asked to discuss or even write stories that they aren't familiar with. And instead of getting a first-hand experience, they go off the previous articles written by other publications highlighting the negativity surrounding Stadia. And it's an ongoing cycle, and I will be the first to admit, I fall into this as well. I run this entire channel. I do all the editing, the writing, the filming, the producing, and I barely have time to shower and eat, let alone try out every single platform and try out every single game that's out there. But that is also the reason that you rarely see me talking shit about services or platforms that I've never tried. And look, I am a firm believer that everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt. So to my fellow influencers, gaming outlets, journalists, and even publications, if you don't know anyone who uses Google Stadia, well, I filmed this video specifically for you. How do I know if it's recording? Okay, it's recording. All right. Hi, my name is Bryant. I am a Google Stadia player. Yes, we do exist. I enjoy long walks on the beach, going on hikes, and playing video games on Google Stadia. And you're probably wondering, wow, where'd you get that controller? I made it myself. When it comes to video games, I really like horror games. So I've been playing Resident Evil a lot lately. There's a game on Stadia I really enjoy. It's called Outcasters. Super fun, very colorful, very playful, kid-friendly. So, you know, definitely don't have to worry about who is watching while I'm playing. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for somebody to hang out with or play video games with on Stadia, add me on Stadia. Here is my Stadia ID. I'm probably gonna regret that because the last time I shared my Stadia ID, I got like 400 friend requests, and I'm still trying to approve all of those. If you're looking for somebody to come on your podcast or come on your show, or maybe even write some news coverage for you, look no further, please. Hit me up. Here's my contact information. I would be happy to tell you all about the world of Google Stadia. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Nerf Report. Thank you again so much for watching, and a special thank you to all of the Nerf Report best friends who make content just like this possible. Until next time, my name is Brian Chappelle, and this is the Nerf Report. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks again for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw and you want to see more content just like it, which who wouldn't, hit the subscribe button right there. And while you're down there, hit the like button. Maybe even consider becoming a Nerf Report best friend, just like the people listed down below did. In fact, don't you want to see your name there? I know I do.